You know it, I know it, now the whole world knows it. The AP poll is a disaster. No matter how little you think of the people running college football, you still think too highly of them. Now, the AP poll's especially been a joke this year. I'm not quite sure why it stood out more to me, but we've talked about it on the show already a couple of times, and I think that's helped to shed a little more light on just how ridiculous some of this stuff is. And you may already be thinking to yourself, the AP poll, that doesn't matter. It matters. It does matter. Maybe not in the ways you think it does, but it does matter. We got a systemic issue here. So let's call it out. Let's talk about it. So the college football public, since there's been a whole lot more light shed on this farce of a poll so far this season, has taken upon themselves to do sort of a college football public ballot audit. And by that, I mean they've started to turn over some rocks. And it's been ugly what they found underneath. It's just going to shock you if you're just a casual observer of this sport, but I am here to tell you that there are a lot of people with their hands on this sport who not only have no clue about the sport, they don't really even care about it all that much. As you gasp in disbelief, I'm going to have Bradley tee up a little bit of sound for you. So I'm going to show you video of a young lady by the name of Haley Sawyer. I'm going to pause before we play the video, and I'm going to tell you, this segment's not really even about her. She's taken a beating online today with good reason because her poll's a joke. However, it's really not even on her. I'm going to play the video, and just so you know the context here, Florida lost to USF the other night. In this person's ballot, Florida then jumped 2 spots from 16 to 14, and USF remained unranked. Okay, obviously she didn't watch the game and has no clue that USF even won the game. That's no breaking news, because honestly, she's probably not even the only person who didn't know that it happened. A lot of the people who have AP votes are beat writers. They have a job to do, to cover a team. And so, it's not out of the realm of possibility that they just kind of mail their ballot in. If that were the case, this would be one of 1,000,001 examples of that happening. But that's not the case, because then what Haley did is she went public and she talked about it, and what would have disappeared or probably never even been seen to begin with by 99% of the sporting society is now front and center, and it's been everywhere today. Without further ado, here's Haley Sawyer. Roll it, Bradley.
But as far as what my votes are and what my process is, I wake up early in the morning after covering a game late in the night before. Don't want to go too much into my progress or process or logic, but I will say I appreciate everybody's interaction on social media and all of your feedback. There's tons of people that vote on the AP poll, and it's not a perfect system, but at the end of the day, no matter who you pick, it does even out because there's so many people who vote. And like I said, it's really fun for discussion. It doesn't, probably matter in the end, but I'm glad that people are having a really good time.
Ladies and gentlemen, the AP voting process. I see a couple of people already taking shots at her for things that we're not going to let you take shots at anyone for in the live chat. So cool that. A lot of people are going to try and turn this into a gender debate. Don't do that. There are plenty of fools out there voting on this stuff who are about as American red-blooded male as it gets, and theirs are no better. It has nothing to do with that. My visceral reaction when I saw that wasn't even about her. She's a beat reporter. She covers USC. I've never met her. I don't know anything about her. I assume she does a great job. It's about the entire process. We've got athletic directors on the playoff committee that have every bit as little a clue about what's going on as she did. At least she's got a job to do, and she's doing it. At least she's turning in a story late at night about USC football. We got people who are athletic directors that are deciding the playoff rankings that have no possible way to watch these games. And to pretend otherwise is asinine. And I look at pro sports out there, and sometimes I wonder when they look at college athletics and they look at some of the quote-unquote problems we have, how laughable it must be. This is totally avoidable, as are many of the instances of anything from laughable to corrupt in our sport, most of it's avoidable. It's just college football is gate-kept by a bunch of clowns. So I looked at that, I listened to that. I probably initially thought the same things you did, but I quickly moved past having any kind of anger or any kind of resentment or any kind of anything towards Haley Sawyer, because she can only exercise a vote that's given to her. Hey, wait just a second. I appreciate you guys watching. Most of you are subscribed. If you're not, please do so. It's free. It helps us keep the show free, and that's how we do college football year-round. All right, back to the video. I have looked for a long time around press boxes or around polls or around Heisman voting, and I've just been in disbelief at the people who participate in it, because I know good and well most of them don't care. At least she admitted, that's not that big a deal. I don't really take it all that seriously. We got a little situation here where too many people with a voice in college football care less than the people without a voice. It's just that it's being exposed more now. It's been the case for a while. And I know, I've told this story before. Again, I want to make sure you understand this extends well beyond her. Forget about her, okay? Push the one individual off to the side. It is a systemic sort of issue. It's not a crisis, okay? The world's not going to burn down because of this. I'm not suggesting it is, but it's more of a symptom than the problem itself. The problem is college football is gate-kept by clowns. College football for a long time has been run by people who could not care less about the sport. College football is sort of a play toy for them. College football is sort of a mechanism for them. In some cases, it's just so they can feel authoritative about something, and they couldn't get their hands on a pro sport, so they had to settle for fooling people into putting them in administrative positions that they slithered their way up the ladder in college athletics. And then, lo and behold, 30 years later, they get to decide who votes on this and who votes on that and who decides this and who runs that committee. So they don't really take it seriously. They don't love it. A lot of them don't love it at all. It's just kind of an on-ramp for some of them to get where they want to go, which is news or politics. And for others, it's just they kind of failed their way up. And then they build a model where that ends up happening. And for a long time, you had media obviously complicit in it because that's who participates in it. And only in the last 10 years have you ever even had the ability for someone to shine a light on it. Because anybody who had a platform big enough 15, 20 years ago to shine a light on it was part of it. That's kind of low-key why they hate shows like this. They hate platform, they hate podcasting, YouTube. They hate that. Boy, they had a nice thing going for a long time. And only recently has it been called out. Well, Josh, she's got to cover a USC game. I know that. She has no clue. She has no clue that the USF-Florida game even happened. Not her fault. It's no more her fault than once upon a time I was with my mom when I was a kid in the Peachtree Mall parking lot in Columbus, Georgia. And this kid got into the driver's seat of his mother's van while she wasn't looking and actually put it in drive. The car started moving. So there's a freak out briefly, and then the parent, I can't remember if it was a mom or a dad, but the parent runs over and hits the e-brake or, puts it in park. And then guess what the parent did? The parent started yelling at the kid. The little 2 or 3-year-old kid gets yelled at. And I remember, even as a fellow kid, I looked at that situation and thought, why is the kid in trouble? The parent's the one dumb enough to leave the keys in the car that's running with an unattended kid in the front seat. So a lot of people looked at this today and said, oh, Haley Sawyer, take her vote away. Oh, well, guess what you're going to have if you take her vote away? You're going to have a whole bunch of other people who just happen to not be exposed on this particular Tuesday in this particular week who have every bit as big an issue who still have votes. And if you think that's a joke, you ought to see the Heisman voter roll. So you can either look at it and say, yeah, that's a problem that should be addressed. Or you could say, oh, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter at all. Well, what does matter to you? Oh, the AP poll doesn't matter, Josh. What matters to you? Well, of course, the college football playoff rankings matter. Where do you think they get their baseline opinion from? Where do you think they get their starting point from? You don't think this thing right here shapes their thinking? These people are just as inept and just as unqualified or incapable of watching college football in totality as the AP voters are. Do you understand what makes up the College Football Playoff Committee, by the way? It's a bunch of athletic directors. There's one media representative, which, credit to our friends at College Football Nerds, I wasn't even fully aware of. Not only that fact that that exists, but the egregiousness of who that representative is year to year. Those people have no more qualification to rank teams than most of the AP voters do. I kid you not. There are 2,000 people watching this show right now in this live chat that are more qualified than most AP voters and many people on that playoff committee. It's just that college football has been gatekept for a long time by people who had enough authority to make sure that the entire system was this big a joke. And I'm not quite sure, absent electing me commissioner, of course, I'm not quite sure how it changes. But I will say the one thing that people who are dumb enough to build this kind of model have in common is they're not particularly talented. And they also don't really love criticism. And they incur a lot more criticism these days than they ever did before, because a lot of the ineptitude is more visible these days than it ever has been before. But I just wanted to lead with it. Yes, I saw it, and yes, it's pathetic. I just think it's bigger than one person. That's all.